We will call this meeting to order. It's Monday, November 27th. This is the City of Kingsburg's regular meeting for the Finance Committee. Open it up for public comments. None. We'll move to item 3, the approval of the minutes. Motion for that?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 4, the Townsend Public Affairs Contract Renewal Discussion. Presentation by City Manager Alex Henderson.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. If you recall, in 2022, about a year ago, this time, the Finance Committee and also the Council approved a contract with Townsend Public Affairs to assist staff with grant writing and also provide lobbying services on behalf of the city. The city subsequently signed a one-year contract with TPA at $6,500 per month, utilizing ARPA dollars. That contract expired in mid-November. The past year, staff has utilized their services consistently and believes that with the additional infrastructure funding still funneling to local government, it remains a worthwhile investment to continue with their services. Summary of all activities is included in your packet, but some highlights of successful applications include $350,000 for the state budget bill for the fire engine, which was done via their lobbying efforts, $180,000 Caltrans Clean California grant for Heritage Park, and then they also assisted with the Tri-County Healthcare District grants that were awarded as well. They did complete other grants for us that were unsuccessful, and we are continuing for opportunities. They also provide both state and federal legislative updates that eases burden on staff and allows for the city to take formal positions on pieces of legislation that have an impact on Kingsburg. So, Amy, we are recommending that the Finance Committee direct staff to work with CPA to extend the existing contract and to bring to approval. That concludes my report. I'm happy.
Question on that?
I think we should continue with the contract. I mean, would we be extending it? Would the terms, would it still be $6,500? Is that going to be negotiated, or?
That's the proposal right now. I had some conversation with Andres, who's our representative, because I know that they recently signed a contract with a neighboring community, but for $4,500 a month, but it was for grant writing services only. So I felt like that was still competitive. If the group would like me to return to them and ask for a lower amount, certainly that. The other question I was going to have is whether or not we do another year term or a year with an option for renewal. That's the pleasure. Last one was a year term, so.
And we utilize ARPA funds, $190.
Yeah, those are ones through 20.
Well, I think the benefits we received in the grants that they were successful with, and additionally it's helping to ease some administrative burdens for writing the grants. I think we're definitely receiving the benefit of the contract.
It's definitely still required, and I would say this regardless of the grant, if we use a different grant writing firm or any grant writing firm, it requires input and staff time. I mean, it's just the reality of that, because there are projects and people that they need come from our department, and so I think that having some discussion with the department heads, I think that if we have a longer term relationship with the group, then they'll start to understand what some of our intricacies are, which will allow them to take more of that on the relationship. I do think that the legislative updates are helpful. Myself, keeps me more in tune to what's happening in Sacramento. So I wouldn't say it would have been impossible, but I would say it's unlikely, and this is the first time we've ever gotten this the air mark at the time that I've been working with us.
We discussed when, we brought this last year about whether or not it was worth the lobbying services, and we were recommending it, and then with a $350 truck alone, that more than paid for extra a month that they quoted us for. I don't remember the exact amount, but I do believe it was about $2,000. And I think it's paid off, and I think that their team does a good job, weekly, monthly updates, trying to, give us a summary of what, grants are in the pipeline. I would recommend renewing as is.
The department heads, when we met, they recommend renewing it to their, we like to keep them. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I like the grant writing services for the department heads. I like the lobbying for electeds. That is helpful for us. So, I'll move forward with recommendation for a full renewal. I do like that, I think that they're a little bit, every year they have to kind of prove themselves. So with that, do we have any motions?
I'll make a motion to extend the term, for another year.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Alright.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, review of the forming resolution and membership and powers and duties for the finance committee. Presentation by City Manager Alex Henderson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So, as we discussed a little bit at the council, we're trying to go through, and the bulk of this work is being done by Abigail, but to go through and look at all of our committee structures and try and find some consistency with how they're created. We've had some challenges with what the terms look like, who the members consist of, you know, where they might live, all those sorts of things. And so our goal is to provide, you know, take these to all the committees that are relevant, model them the same way, and then have the council codify them in the municipal code. So if you look, in 2006, the city council adopted a resolution that formed the finance committee, but it has currently 2 city council members, the city manager, the finance director, the city planning and development director, and the city engineer as members. That has never been the practice in my time here. I suspect that when the city engineer position and former planning positions were outsourced at the time, so during the recession, that just kind of morphed into what this group looks like right now. But it also has 6 committee members, which leaves an even number that an issue if there's a split vote. So we're recommending that the committee continue to consist of 2 city council members, city manager, the finance director, and then the assistant city manager, the director of administrative services. That would be the 5 people that are sitting in the meeting. The other portion for the finance committee to discuss is just sort of powers and duties. Some of the things that were in the forming resolution, I think are honestly not practical for what the finance committee actually is responsible for, working with auditors, things like that. That's more of a staff level function. So we have some powers and duties which I think are all encompassing and truly I guess a preference of this group as to whether or not you kind of want it to be sort of broad as it comes to budget policy and financial statements, long-term debt, or how specific, you know, this group would like that language to be. So we have some recommended language that we would include in there, but certainly if there are additional areas that aren't covered, I did try and look at a lot of other communities and what their language that they have for finance committees look like. They're all relatively similar. Some of them are solely focused on like investment returns. They don't do anything related to, you know, budget stuff. Some of them are structured a little bit more like ours are. So trying to find a happy medium for what this group does, and then,
I like the proposed language. I like it being, just real, broad and high level that, can be, and then it's not forced, and then, because the previous language was kind of interesting. You know, a few of those, no, I do support making the, suggested changes in the language that you.
And I think we can make it, nothing. Concise and make sense to me.
Are we intentionally leaving out when we're going to meet, just so we have better flexibility?
yeah, I think what we've talked about too is maybe putting in some language that says that the group will decide that, because, you know, that's,
All the ordinances will be the same, and we'll say that.
yeah.
To change the ordinance, it takes like 60 days, so we wanted to change it. There's a new member that wants to meet a different time or day. The process is much longer, so if we leave it where the group decides in the ordinance, then we don't have to go through that process every time we want to change the day or time.
If you guys select a different council member to sit on the chair and they can't meet at this time, right, then we want to go back and change the entire municipal code.
And if we don't have any items, we're not.
Yeah.
I think we just need to do a very good job educating people. I didn't know that this was the fourth Monday of the month until like halfway through this year. And I looked back and I'm like, that was not the fourth Monday, that was not the fourth Monday. Didn't know that was the rule, so I think it'd be good if we like tried to maybe like pass a calendar ahead of time for the year, or be like, I don't know, transparent about meeting dates that are actually
We
scheduled.
will, in December, we pass the master calendar with all the dates.
And that's, yeah, we do that, and there are times though that, like, the fourth Monday falls on something that
Well, like,
somebody can't meet.
December is
Right,
Christmas,
right.
right, we'll be closed for the fourth
Right.
Monday.
So there have been times where we've had to have a special meeting because of
Yeah.
the solar stuff, and there's a time frame, right, so then it's not gonna necessarily be on the fourth Monday, it might be on Tuesday or something like that, so there are different instances, but, you know,
If you go by appointment based on title, then there's no need to mention being a resident.
yeah, I think for this committee, that would not be the case, because we don't have any, it's not volunteer, these are gonna be staff positions and council members.
There's no members of the public on this committee.
I mean, I think overall, the finance committee, running effectively, it seems like, really just kind of a little bit of oversight to prevent unnecessary things from going to council, or to vet them a little bit. I think when we take things to council, when we tell them that we've gone through it in finance, it carries some weight. So, we have to stay flexible. And if we had an outpouring of public interest and they were missing meetings, that would probably be a little different concern with it being on the master calendar. But I think we've had 2 meetings where we've had people here. Any other discussion on that?
The only other discussion, not to muddy this too much, is whether or not, there's been a handful of issues that I would say don't necessarily fall within the finance committee's purview as of right now, whether or not we wanna have this be like a finance and policy committee, or if we wanna have almost like a separate policy committee that discusses, right? So let's just say, for example, go through some of our, we're gonna update our personnel manual, right? You know, we're gonna do that, and I think that there's, to your point, I think there's value sometimes in vetting these things at a subcommittee level before they just go to the council, and you guys are like, oh, okay, now we've got 150 pages of personnel. So do we look at creating something that, cause I don't know that that's a finance committee function either, right? Cause it's sort of, you know, personnel policy related, and sometimes you have these issues too, where you've got municipal code language that doesn't necessarily fall under any particular committee that we currently have. We kind of almost need like a catch-all committee of, you know, policy items that we can, it sort of reminds me of the policy advisory committee for the COG before it kicks up to, you know, the board. So, I don't know that we need to commingle this committee, but it's just something to think about as to maybe separate committee that we look at for a particular.
Keep that far off base, but add it to this committee, finance and policy committee. With the personnel, I mean, this is, heavily funded. What other committees, if it would even be reasonable to have it?
No, I think you'd have to almost create a different one, you know, I don't know that, so we could mold this one and change, and call it like a finance and policy committee, and then add some more language to the powers and duties, that covers that. Otherwise, you'd almost need to create a different committee that would look at those things, and, I think there's probably pros and cons to both. There's just, sometimes we're sort of like, I don't know which group we should get this to. I would say the finance committee probably ends up being the default committee if there is something like that, but, because it's happened council, so it seems like the most appropriate place to do it, and I would suggest that the committee would probably look something. I'll just.
I've seen other cities, they do have a subcommittee with employees, kind of department, like, not department, MOU representative. And when it has to do with personnel, health insurance, stuff that it will affect the employees, to have some of their, members in those, subcommittees, and it hasn't been in the finance committee, but it's also a good idea, to include, you know, representatives for their group.
And I think some of that could happen either through meet and confer or to almost point, you know, together a group, look at this. They might come with a recommendation that eventually comes to this group or a policy group that is then, you know, now it's been vetted before it's coming to elected officials. I think there are other.
Like you're gonna have one group that can do all, unless if you're gonna have labor things commingle with the credit card policy and.
Yeah.
Right. You feel much learning.
We'll make the management right decisions. Could it, I mean, could it be a portion, could it be this committee, and if there were, okay, could it be the finance committee, and then a couple times a year, or however often, it would be the finance committee plus, you know, it's the policy committee within the finance committee. So there'd be additional members. And maybe because it seems like it would make sense to keep it, you know.
I mean, I think if we want this group to sort of be the group that does it, then maybe we just add some language to powers and duties, and then as it relates to individual topics, then I think it'll be, we'll have to decide, okay, pull in a labor for this, or, you know, this is not a labor issue, right? This is a different policy subject that's, you know, related to that. I'll paint this into a only this or only this.
There has to be some sort of a financial problem is that we're dealing with, there needs to be kind of a hierarchy about like, if there's anything financial related to it, it's gonna go to finance.
Sure.
But if it is a straight like labor, nothing, it shouldn't come to us, I don't think. I don't think that one can, you can faction that off. But, I mean, almost everything is gonna end up having a financial aspect to it, so can we get vetted here? But these things that have absolutely nothing, that are just general city policy stuff, and like, we might be out of our scope a little bit, that's about. And you can have work groups and stuff with labor for that other.
We already are legally required to meet with them or give them the offer.
I'm just thinking about like, okay, I mean, I think we could probably work it out, man. You know, maybe planning commission or. No, I'm just trying to think, but, you know, let's just say there's a discussion about the fence, like fence heights. Who's that gonna go to, right? You know, I don't have a policy committee necessarily for that, so maybe that one would fall under the purview of like development standards, and maybe that's the. I don't know, what are some other ones? I guess I could tie it to financials, right, but like, yeah, you wanna redo the mural language, what people can paint, or where they can do it, or like what that looks like, you know, what the scope of that looks like. Or a subcommittee, or do we just have staff handle that, and then ultimately it just goes to the. So you know, there's just like things that are in the gray area of finance, not necessarily labor related, I mean, they're just like code things, or they're language things, and
I would almost caution about tying it up in committees. That's one of the great things about Kingsbury, is if we wanna change, but we could do that at a council meeting, we know when that's happening, it doesn't have to. Simple things like that. Sure.
More public.
Well, and the same with the murals,
Yeah.
you know, and then,
Staff make a recommendation, you guys can make that.
Well, like for the mural, wouldn't we talk about the amount that we are authorizing? So they would kind of get the time to talk about other aspects of it overall, because there's a financial component to it.
if you're talking about awarding a program, right, like if you're just having a hypothetical conversation about like, hey, we wanna make sure that people come in and they're gonna ask for a mural, even if they've got their own money, what do we want that to look like, right? So that's just that particular example, but I appreciate the point, I think we. Much more at staff level.
Powers and duties of the finance committee. Have direction to make slight changes, or are we good with it as is?
So if you're good with what we have proposed here, then I think we'll, that direction, have you put it together and ultimately do it.
I mean, I think we do have a catch-all about all other duties and responsibilities.
There you go.
Okay, so can I get a motion to move forward with that? Do we,
make that motion.
all in favor? Opposed? Item 6, any other business?
If we do have to have, if we are looking at potentially at a December meeting, because the 25th is Christmas.
There's no reason why we can't do it on Christmas.
Is everyone available on the 18th? The council meeting on the 20th. Okay. So we'll just, we just hold the spot and then we'll, in case there's anything. Got that?